Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2023 horror anthology film Free to a Bad Home. The film is directed by Cameron Hale and Scott Hale, and it stars Miranda Neiman, Hayley Sunshine, Jake C. Young, Benjamin Paul Rigney, Tyler McGraw and Ronia Locke, as well as others. Now, with this being a horror anthology, the theme here is kind of like cursed objects almost. There's like, and this is something that you mainly probably see more in America than the UK, but you know, when people kind of leave things outside the house in a box with a note on it saying free to a good home. Well, it's a similar concept. That's kind of like the wraparound story here. There's like these items in a box that says free to a good home on it, you know, and essentially these items are curse type of thing, and that kind of works as the wraparound, but it's loose, I suppose. And we get three stories primarily here on this horror anthology, and so they're quite lengthy, these stories. Sometimes horror anthologies can be, you know, quite short, sometimes too short. These ones are reasonably lengthy, and the first one is called Amy. Now, Amy is a widowed woman, and I'm trying to not give away too many spoilers. She has lost her husband through some tragic incident. However, she's kind of trapped in a cycle until she faces the truths of what that situation entailed. Okay, I don't want to say any more than that because it'll probably give too much away. And now, the one thing I will say about all these stories is, and I don't honestly think this is a particularly strong horror anthology film. I think that's a bit of an understatement. I think it's a pretty dull horror anthology film, and I think there are some reasons for that. All of the stories, this one included, the first one, Amy, have got really poor setups, and they're really quite dull to watch. Like this one, for example, is a lot of conversations and, you know, two women sat around drinking, you know, glasses of wine and things like that and moaning and griping. And then the kind of twist or the horror aspect of it comes right at the end. And by that point, you've checked out mentally. And it's not that impactful either. You know what I mean? You can kind of see it coming. So that was essentially what the first story is about. The second story is about Ryan, and it's called Ryan, and it's about a thief who we see him breaking into a house and, you know, attempting to rob this house, and then he encounters somebody within this house that appears to be being held prisoner, who he then decides to help or feels compelled to help. Again, this one really poor setup. For a big chunk of the first part of this story, we just see this Ryan character wandering around a darkened house with his torch, stealing stuff. And then when it gets to the potential horror, once again, it's not that impactful, and you've checked out mentally. So it just didn't click with me, this story either, unfortunately. And the third story is called Julia, so you can see a theme here, yeah. And this one is essentially focused around drugs and drug addiction, I suppose, to some degree. The message very clearly here at the end of this is drugs are bad. It's not very subtle, but essentially we get these I think it's 4 or 5 girls in a car putting these eye drops in. Now, these eye drops are like obviously the drug, and these are all girls going out for a fun night out, or so they think, all getting high, talking bollocks in this car for this car journey that goes on for way too long. They get to the location they're going to, and then, you know, it gets creepy, dangerous, and dodgy. Again, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but the setup here was really dull. I think they thought they were trying to be clever by giving us like almost like Tarantino-like setups. Certainly in the third story, and probably the first one as well, you know, where characters just talking about normal stuff with each other or what have you, but you know, Tarantino's a very special talent, you know what I mean? It's not an easy thing to do, to just make normal conversations interesting, and it doesn't work here either. So again, dull setup, potentially interesting conclusion, but again, it's about as subtle as a sledgehammer in its message. So I have to be honest here, guys. None of these stories had an effective impact on me at all. I don't necessarily think the production values are horrific. I do think there are some sound quality issues, and some of the stories, some of the camera shots aren't brilliant. There's a little bit of shaky cam going on here and there. So it does feel low quality occasionally, but I've seen far, far worse films in regards to low budgets and the quality of the product that they're giving us. And I don't even necessarily think the performances are what you would describe as shockingly bad or anything. They are of certainly an acceptable and decent standard. I think what absolutely lets these stories down is, as I've said, they're not very interesting. They're pretty dull, and they probably could have done with an extra story and shortened the others down, because for far too long we're listening to conversations that aren't interesting, watching a thief walk around a house in the dark robbing things, and listening to girls in a car talking how girls talk, sort of thing. And we only get fleeting moments of horror or tension, and it's just not enough to hold your attention. So I think this one quite badly misses the mark for a horror anthology. Horror anthology films, by their very nature being shorter, should be able to hold your attention span better. And unfortunately, this is the first one I've watched in a long time where I definitely can't say that. And I can definitely say sometimes you watch a horror anthology film and there's at least one or two of the stories that you can, you go away thinking, that's all right. These all basically made me feel exactly the same. They're all of the same level. You don't watch any of them and think they're appalling. None of them are appalling. They're just not interesting, which is, I think, is a real shame. So if you are interested in this, if any of it sounds interesting to you, or you like horror anthology films, this one is coming out in early February. So give it a check out when it is released. So thanks for watching, guys. I'll be back with more reviews and content on the channel very, very soon.